3 words. That's all it took to trigger a protocol designed to eliminate threats before they could breathe. Leave me alone. When Thomas Mercer spoke those words in a quiet Asheville supermarket, he wasn't just dismissing a rude young man with a camera. He was activating a digital tripwire connected to one of the most sophisticated surveillance networks ever created by British intelligence. The arrogant influencer, Derek Walsh, thought he'd found his next viral victim, a frail old man to mock for internet points. He had no idea he'd just marked himself for observation by algorithms that never sleep, never forget, and never forgive exposure. This isn't a story about a simple confrontation between generations. This is about what happens when the invisible machinery of international espionage collides with the age of social media, when a retired ghost decides he deserves peace, and when a desperate content creator unknowingly pulls the pin on a grenade he can't see. Thomas Mercer spent 35 years in the shadows, eliminating enemies of the crown, stealing secrets that could topple governments, and making people disappear without a trace. He came to the Blue Ridge Mountains to become invisible, to finally live the quiet life he'd sacrificed everything for: his marriage, his relationship with his daughter, and any semblance of normalcy. But the past doesn't negotiate. It doesn't offer retirement packages with peaceful endings. And when Derek posted that video, he didn't just embarrass an old man. He lit up every facial recognition system connected to MI6's most classified protective measures. The long-range protocoller system, so secret that even most intelligence officers don't know it exists, had locked onto Derek Walsh and Thomas. He knew exactly what was coming. The question wasn't if violence would arrive in Asheville. The question was whether anyone would survive it. How did a simple request for privacy spiral into an international crisis? Stay with us, because what you're about to discover will change how you see every stranger on the street. The morning mist clung to the mountains surrounding Asheville like a protective veil, soft and forgiving. Thomas Mercer stood on the wooden porch of his modest cabin on the outskirts of town, cradling a steaming cup of coffee as the sun began its slow climb over the peaks. At 72 years old, his hair had turned the color of winter clouds, and the lines on his face told stories he would never speak aloud. But his eyes, those pale blue eyes, still held the sharpness of a predator who had spent decades hunting in the dark. Asheville had been the perfect choice for disappearance. Nestled at an elevation of 2,200 feet in the Blue Ridge Mountains, the city possessed an eclectic charm that attracted artists, retirees, and free spirits. Its downtown was a masterpiece of Art Deco architecture, second only to Miami Beach in its collection of those geometric beauties from the 1920s and 30s. The climate was mild, with 4 distinct seasons that painted the mountains in ever-changing colors. Most importantly, it was a place where people minded their own business, where a man could slip into anonymity among the craft breweries, hiking trails, and farmers' markets. Thomas had arrived in Asheville 7 years ago under the name Thomas Mercer, a synthetic identity created by MI6's identity division, complete with a fabricated past as a retired insurance adjuster from Manchester. His real name, his real history, his real sins, all buried under layers of classified documentation that would never see daylight. The cabin he lived in sat on 3 acres of wooded land off Riceville Road, far enough from the tourist bustle of downtown but close enough that he could walk into civilization when the solitude became suffocating. His daily routine had become a meditation in normalcy. Wake at 6, coffee on the porch. A drive into town for breakfast at the Early Girl Eatery, where the staff knew him as the quiet British man who always ordered the same thing: 2 eggs over easy, bacon, and whole wheat toast. After breakfast, he'd walk through the River Arts District, watching painters and sculptors work in converted warehouses, their creative freedom something he envied deeply. Sometimes he'd hike the trails around the French Broad River, letting the sound of moving water drown out the screams that still echoed in his memory. But beneath the peaceful facade, Thomas remained vigilant. Old habits died hard, and habits drilled into you by 35 years of operational fieldwork never died at all. He still checked for surveillance every time he left the house, still varied his routes, still noticed the same faces appearing too frequently in public spaces, still slept with a Glock 19 in the drawer of his nightstand and a go bag hidden in the crawl space beneath his cabin cache, 3 passports in different names, a satellite phone, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. The isolation had been necessary, but it had also been devastating. His ex-wife Sarah had divorced him 15 years ago after 20 years of lies, missed birthdays, and unexplained absences. She'd known he worked for the government, but not the truth that he was an assassin, a spy, a man who lived in moral gray zones where right and wrong blurred into survival and mission completion. Their daughter Emma was now 38 years old, married with 2 children Thomas had never met. Emma had tried to maintain contact for years, sending letters and emails that Thomas read but rarely answered. How could he explain his absence? How could he tell her that staying away was the only way to keep her safe? The weight of those choices pressed down on him every single day, heavier than any weapon he'd ever carried. He'd eliminated 17 targets over his career, men and women who threatened British national security, who trafficked in weapons of mass destruction, who funded terror networks. He'd done it cleanly, professionally, without hesitation. but the faces still visited him at night, appearing in dreams that left him gasping for air, reaching for the gun that would never silence ghosts. Thomas finished his coffee and went inside to dress for his morning routine. He selected a simple outfit: jeans, a flannel shirt, a light jacket, the uniform of an aging man trying to blend into the fabric of small-town America. Before leaving, he glanced at the framed photograph on his mantel, the only personal item he'd allowed himself. It showed Sarah and Emma at the beach, both smiling, frozen in a moment of happiness from a lifetime ago. He touched the frame gently, a ritual of remembrance and regret, then walked out the door. The drive into Asheville took 20 minutes along winding mountain roads lined with autumn foliage that blazed in shades of crimson, gold, and amber. The beauty was undeniable, but Thomas couldn't fully appreciate it. Beauty was a luxury for people who slept without nightmares. He parked near the Haywood Street district and walked the familiar route to Early Girl Eatery, nodding politely to the few people who acknowledged him. After breakfast, he decided to stop at the Green Life Grocery on Merriman Avenue to pick up supplies. The store was busy, a mix of aging hippies, young families, and health-conscious locals filling carts with organic produce and local honey. Thomas moved through the aisles with practiced efficiency, selecting items with the precision of someone who hated wasting time. He turned into the cereal aisle and nearly collided with a young man holding a smartphone at arm's length, clearly filming himself. Derek Walsh was 28 years old, lean and restless, with the kind of cocky energy that came from growing up in the age of instant gratification and digital validation. He had moved to Asheville 2 years ago from Charlotte, chasing the city's reputation as a creative hub where he could build his personal brand as an influencer. His YouTube channel, Viral Derek, had modest success: 43,000 subscribers who tuned in for his confrontational prank videos, where he ambushed strangers, provoked reactions, and turned human discomfort into content. Derek didn't notice Thomas at first, too focused on his selfie-style commentary about the absurdity of overpriced organic groceries. But when he pivoted to capture a wider shot, his camera caught the older man trying to navigate around him. Derek saw opportunity. Older people always made great content. They'd either get confused and funny, or angry and viral. Either way, he won. He swung the camera toward Thomas. "Hey everyone, check out this guy." Sir, excuse me, can I ask you something for my channel? What's the deal with all these old folks shopping for kale at 10 in the morning? Shouldn't you be at bingo or something?" Thomas stopped walking. He turned slowly, his expression neutral but his eyes calculating. "I'd prefer not to be filmed. Please stop." Derek smirked, sensing resistance, which was even better than compliance. "Oh, come on man, don't be a grump. It's just a harmless video. You afraid of the internet, grandpa? Leave me alone, right? That's your vibe." Thomas spoke quietly, his British accent adding a layer of formality that Derek immediately found mockable. "Yes, leave me alone. That's exactly my vibe." Derek laughed, zooming in on Thomas's serious face. "Oh man, this is gold. You guys seeing this? Grumpy British grandpa doesn't want to be on camera. Sir, you know this is a public place, right? I can film whatever I want. Maybe smile a little. You look like you're about to have a heart attack." Thomas stared at him for 3 seconds, long enough to memorize every detail of Derek's face, to assess threat level, to decide that this foolish young man wasn't dangerous, just stupid. Then he turned and walked away without another word, leaving Derek laughing and narrating his victory to the camera. What Derek couldn't see were the security cameras mounted throughout the store, operated by a system that included facial recognition software integrated with a dozen law enforcement and intelligence databases. Thomas's face had been flagged years ago in MI6's secure archive under Operation Nightshader, classified designation reserved for retired field operatives whose identities were considered high-value secrets. The moment the store's camera captured Thomas's face in high definition, an automated ping was sent to a secure server in London. That ping triggered a secondary review, and when that review detected Thomas in close proximity to someone recording him on video, a protocol was activated, the long-range protocol. Thomas left the grocery store and drove home in silence, his mind already running contingency plans. He'd been filmed. That footage could end up online. If it went viral, and in this age, anything could go viral, his face would be broadcast to millions. Facial recognition technology was everywhere now, not just in government hands. Private companies, foreign intelligence services, criminal organizations, scanning the internet for targets. He'd been careful for 7 years, and in 30 seconds of carelessness, everything could unravel. Back at the cabin, Thomas opened his laptop and began searching social media for Derek Walsh. It took less than 10 minutes to find him: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all under the handle Viral Derek. Thomas watched several videos, studying Derek's patterns, his locations, his habits. The young man was predictable, egotistical, and reckless, a child playing with matches in a forest. Thomas considered his options. He could leave Asheville immediately, activate one of his backup identities, and disappear again. But running meant abandoning the fragile peace he'd built. It meant starting over, again, in another anonymous town where loneliness would eat him alive. Or he could stay, monitor the situation, and hoped that Derek's video wouldn't gain traction. It was a gamble, and Thomas Mercer had spent his entire career calculating gambles. He closed the laptop and walked to the window, staring out at the mountains. The sun was high now, burning off the morning mist, revealing the world in sharp clarity. Somewhere in those mountains a storm was building. He could feel it. The kind of storm that didn't announce itself with thunder, but with silence before the strike. And in London, in a windowless room deep within the MI6 headquarters at Vauxhall Cross, an analyst named Patricia Holloway reviewed an automated alert that had landed in her queue. The alert showed a flagged operative's face detected in Asheville, North Carolina, in proximity to a civilian who appeared to be recording. Protocol dictated immediate escalation. She picked up a secure phone and dialed an internal extension. Ops desk, we have a long-range trigger. Operative designation Nightshade 7, American location. Potential exposure event. Initiating full surveillance sweep and threat assessment. The machinery had begun to move, and once it started it never stopped until the threat was neutralized. If you want to know how this seemingly innocent encounter becomes a fight for survival, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with anyone who loves true stories of espionage and redemption. Because what comes next will test everything Thomas thought he'd left behind. The past is about to come knocking, and it's bringing violence with it. Derek Walsh uploaded the grocery store video to his YouTube channel at exactly 2:15 in the afternoon, titling it, "Grumpy British Grandpa Hates the Internet." He added a thumbnail with Thomas's face captured mid-scowl, bold text reading "Leave me alone" plastered across it in neon letters. Derek leaned back in his desk chair at his cramped apartment on Lexington Avenue, grinning at the screen as he hit publish. Within minutes, views began trickling in. By evening, the number had climbed to 8,000. By midnight, it had crossed 50,000. Comments poured in, most of them mocking Thomas, calling him out of touch, suggesting he belonged in a nursing home. A few comments defended him, arguing that Derek was harassing an elderly man. Derek didn't care about the criticism. Controversy meant engagement. Engagement meant algorithm favor. Algorithm favor meant money. What Derek didn't know was that his video had been captured by something far more sophisticated than YouTube's recommendation system. Within hours of publication, automated web-scraping bots deployed by the Government Communications Headquarters GCHQ, Britain's Signals Intelligence Agency, had flagged the video. The bots, part of a broader internet monitoring operation, were specifically programmed to scan for any appearances of individuals in MI6's protected operative database. When the facial recognition software identified Thomas Mercer's face in Derek's video, the file was immediately routed to MI6's Counter-Surveillance and Threat Assessment Division. In London, the analysis began. Patricia Holloway sat in front of a bank of monitors in the operations center, a massive underground facility humming with the quiet intensity of 200 intelligence professionals managing global threats. Patricia was 46, a veteran analyst who had spent 2 decades tracking international terror networks, organized crime syndicates, and rogue state actors. She'd seen everything until now. The long-range protocol wasn't something she encountered often. In fact, in her entire career, she'd only handled 3 cases involving it. The protocol was reserved for a specific category of retired operative, those who possessed knowledge so sensitive, connections so deep, that their exposure represented a national security catastrophe. Thomas Mercer was one of 12 such individuals worldwide designated under law. Patricia pulled up Mercer's file, her clearance granting access to sections most MI6 personnel would never see. Born Thomas Edward Pritchard in Liverpool, 1953. Recruited into MI6 at age 25 after serving in the British Army's intelligence course. Operational deployment history spanning Europe, the Middle East, South America, and Central Asia. 17 confirmed eliminations. Handler for 6 high-value assets embedded in hostile governments. Guardian of the Kestrel Files, a collection of classified documents detailing corruption within NATO governments, including evidence of weapons trafficking, money laundering, and political assassinations orchestrated by Western intelligence agencies. The Kestrel Files were the reason Thomas would never be truly free. Multiple governments wanted those files destroyed. Multiple private actors wanted them for blackmail, and as long as Thomas lived, he was both the key and the target. Patricia reviewed the video again, studying not just Thomas's face but everything else in the frame, the store, the products on shelves, the lighting, the timestamp. She ran geolocation software, pinpointing the exact store within minutes. Green Life Grocery, Merriman Avenue, Asheville, North Carolina. Then she turned her attention to Derek Walsh. A quick background check revealed a mundane life. Born in Charlotte, attended UNC Greensboro but dropped out after 2 years. Worked a series of low-wage jobs before pivoting to social media content creation. No criminal record beyond a misdemeanor trespassing charge from a prank gone wrong. No ties to foreign intelligence. No debts to organized crime. Derek Walsh was exactly what he appeared to be, a foolish young man chasing fame. But foolish young men could be dangerous in their own way. If Derek continued posting videos of Thomas, if other content creators picked up the story, if the video went truly viral, then Thomas's face would be plastered across the internet. And in the digital age, that kind of exposure was irreversible. Enemy agents, mercenaries, private investigators, anyone with an interest in Thomas Mercer or the secrets he held would know exactly where to find him. Patricia drafted her assessment report and sent it up the chain of command. Within 30 minutes, it reached the desk of Malcolm Crane, Director of Field Operations. Crane was 58, a career officer with silver hair, piercing gray eyes, and a reputation for ruthless pragmatism. He'd authorized black operations that never made headlines, traded intelligence with adversaries when it suited British interests, and sacrificed agents when necessary to protect larger strategic goals. He was not a sentimental man. Crane read Patricia's report, then picked up a secure phone. "Get me assets and protective services. I need a team assembled for an American deployment. Priority Alpha. Authorization long range." The call went to Major Evelyn Harper, a former SAS officer who now commanded a specialized unit within MI6 known colloquially as the Watchers. The Watchers were protection specialists, former military, intelligence, and police personnel trained to provide covert security for high-value assets. They operated without official cover, using civilian identities, and possessed legal authorization to employ lethal force if a protected individual's life was threatened. Evelyn Harper was 43, compact and athletic, with short auburn hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd served 12 years in the SAS before transitioning to intelligence work, and she'd run protective details for defectors, diplomats, and retired operatives across 4 continents. When Crane's order came through, she began assembling her team immediately. 2 operatives were selected. The first was Colin Matthews, 36, a Welshman with a background in Royal Marine Commandos and close-quarters combat expertise. The second was Naomi Chen, 31, a British-born surveillance specialist of Chinese descent with advanced training in electronic warfare and cyber operations. Both had worked with Harper before. Both were trusted. "We're wheels up in 6 hours, Harper told them during the mission briefing in a secure conference room. "Target is Thomas Mercer, designation Nightshade 7, currently residing in Asheville, North Carolina. A civilian has filmed him and posted the footage online. Our assessment is that Mercer's cover is compromised. We're deploying to establish protective surveillance, assess threat level, and neutralize any hostiles who approach the target." Colin leaned forward, his thick arms crossed. "What's the threat profile?" "Foreign service. Organized crime." Harper pulled up a map of Asheville on the wall-mounted screen. "Unknown at this stage, but Mercer is the custodian of the Kestrel files, which makes him a target for multiple actors: Russian SVR, rogue CIA elements, private military contractors with ties to defense corporations. If anyone realizes he's been exposed, they'll move fast. Our job is to be faster." Naomi adjusted her glasses, her fingers already typing on a tablet. "I'll establish digital monitoring. If anyone starts searching for Mercer's location or keywords associated with him, we'll know immediately." Harper nodded. "Good. We're operating under non-official cover. If anything goes wrong, the British government will deny our existence." "Understood." Both operatives nodded. This was standard procedure. The invisible war required invisible soldiers. While MI6 prepared to move, Thomas sat in his cabin, staring at his laptop screen. Derek's video had climbed to 80,000 views. The comments were getting worse, more vicious. Some were calling for Thomas to be identified and doxed. Others joked about finding him and making more content. It was all noise, all cruelty for sport. But somewhere in that noise, Thomas knew real predators might be listening. He opened an encrypted messaging app on his phone, one tied to an emergency contact he'd established years ago with MI6. He typed a simple message: "Exposure event, video, online, request assessment." The response came within minutes: "Acknowledged. Protective measures initiated. Maintain current location. Do not engage." Thomas stared at the message, a mix of relief and dread settling in his chest. Protective measures meant the Watchers were coming, which meant MI6 believed the threat was real, which meant his quiet life in Asheville was over. He walked to the window and looked out at the darkening forest. Somewhere out there, people were already making decisions about his life. And somewhere in that digital wilderness of the internet, Derek Walsh was celebrating his viral success, completely unaware that he'd just painted a target on his own back. Because the long-range protocol didn't just protect the operative, it identified anyone who compromised the operative. And Derek Walsh, whether he knew it or not, was now a person of interest to one of the most dangerous intelligence agencies in the world. What do you think about Derek's actions? Was it just harmless content creation, or did he cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your perspective on this clash between the digital age and the world of espionage. And stick around, because the storm is just beginning to gather. Evelyn Harper's team arrived in Asheville on a gray Wednesday morning, 3 days after Derek's video hit 170,000 views. They flew into Asheville Regional Airport undercover as business consultants for a London-based risk management firm. Convenient fiction supported by forged documents, credit histories, and even a functional website listing their supposed services. They rented 2 vehicles, checked into separate hotels, and began operational reconnaissance within hours of landing. Harper established a command post in a rented house on Emma Road, a quiet residential street with a clear sightline to multiple egress routes. Naomi Chen immediately set up her electronic surveillance suite, deploying signal interceptors, hacking into local traffic cameras, and establishing real-time monitoring of Derek Walsh's digital activity. Colin Matthews conducted physical surveillance, driving past Thomas Mercer's cabin, noting entry and exit points, identifying potential ambush locations, and mapping the surrounding terrain. Within 24 hours they had a complete operational picture. Thomas's cabin was isolated, defensible, but vulnerable to a professional team. Derek lived alone in a second-floor apartment with poor security. His front door could be breached in seconds. More concerning, Naomi's digital sweep revealed that Derek's video had been shared on several message boards frequented by conspiracy theorists, intelligence hobbyists, and individuals with concerning search histories. "We've got a problem," Naomi said during their first operational debrief. Her laptop displayed a screenshot of a forum post on a dark web intelligence sharing site. The post included a still image from Derek's video, with Thomas's face circled in red. The caption read, "Anyone recognize this guy? Face recognition says former UK intelligence, Asheville, North Carolina, worth money to the right buyer." Harper's jaw tightened. "How long has that been up?" 48 hours. 6 responses so far, all asking for more information. "No confirmed identification yet, but if someone runs a deep search, they'll find him," Colin whistled low. "So we're not just protecting Mercer from hypothetical threats. We've got live interest." Harper nodded. "Contact London. Update threat assessment to active. We need authorization to expand operational parameters." The response from Malcolm Crane came swiftly. "Authorization granted. Neutralize threats as necessary. Minimize collateral damage. Maintain plausible deniability." That same evening, Thomas received a knock on his cabin door. He approached cautiously, hand resting on the Glock concealed at the small of his back. Through the peephole he saw a woman, early 40s, athletic build, professional demeanor. She stood with her hands visible, non-threatening but alert. Thomas opened the door but kept the chain latched. "Can I help you?" Harper held up an identification badge, authentic MI6 credentials, though Thomas knew they could be fake. "Mr. Mercer, my name is Major Evelyn Harper. I'm with Protective Services. We need to talk." Thomas studied her for a long moment, then unlatched the chain and stepped aside. Harper entered, her eyes immediately scanning the interior exits, sightlines, potential threats. A professional, Thomas respected that. "How bad is it?" Thomas asked, closing the door. "Bad enough that I flew 5,000 miles to stand in your living room," Harper replied. "The video has been flagged by multiple intelligence communities. We've intercepted communications suggesting at least 2 parties are actively attempting to identify you. One appears to be a private intelligence contractor with ties to Russian oligarchs. The other is harder to pin down, could be freelancers, could be organized crime. Either way, they're coming." Thomas sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every one of his 72 years. "What about the civilian? The one who filmed me? Derek Walsh. We're monitoring him. So far he's just a fool. Not a threat, but his video made you visible. That makes him a potential target too. If someone wants to find you, they'll start with him, then get him out of the way. Take him into protective custody. Scare him straight, whatever it takes. He doesn't deserve to die for being stupid." Harper raised an eyebrow. "You're worried about him, the man who exposed you?" Thomas met her gaze, his voice hard. "I've killed 17 people in my career, Major. Every single one of them earned it. That kid in the video, he's just an idiot with a camera. I don't add idiots to my body count." Harper nodded slowly. "Understood. We'll monitor Walsh and intervene if necessary. But our primary objective is you. You're the high-value asset. The Kestrel files make you irreplaceable." Thomas laughed bitterly. "Irreplaceable? Is that what they're calling it now? I'm not an asset, Major. I'm a prisoner. Those files are my life sentence." "Then help us protect that life," Harper said. "My team is here to keep you alive, but we need your cooperation. No heroics, no going rogue. You follow our lead." Thomas stood and walked to the window, staring out at the darkening mountains. "I came here to disappear, to finally have peace. And now you're telling me I'll never have it. Peace is a luxury, Mr. Mercer. You know that better than anyone." Before Thomas could respond, Harper's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression hardening. "We have movement." Naomi just picked up 3 individuals checking into the Grove Park into men. One woman, Eastern European accents, paid cash, using false IDs. Facial recognition came back with matches to a Serbian private military company with links to organized crime. Thomas turned from the window. "How long before they find me? If they're good, 72 hours, maybe less. Then we need to move Derek Walsh. Now if they trace the video back to him, they'll use him to get to me." Harper was already texting her team. "Colin, you're on Walsh. Pick him up tonight. Bring him somewhere secure. Tell him whatever you need to, but get him off the board." Colin Matthews found Derek Walsh at a downtown Asheville bar called the Rankin Vault, a popular spot known for craft cocktails and live music. Derek was holding court with a group of friends, loudly recounting his viral success, showing everyone the view count on his phone like it was a trophy. Colin approached the bar, ordered a whiskey, and positioned himself within earshot. And this old dude, right? He's like, leave me alone, in this super serious British accent, Derek was saying, his words slightly slurred. I swear he looked like he was gonna have a stroke. Funniest thing I've filmed in months. Colin listened, his jaw tight. This kid had no idea what he'd done. No idea that his quest for internet fame had put a target on his back. Colin finished his drink, paid, and followed Derek. When the group finally left the bar around midnight, Derek stumbled toward his apartment alone, earbuds in, scrolling through his phone. He didn't notice Colin following him. Didn't notice when Colin closed the distance in the empty parking lot. Didn't notice until a hand clamped over his mouth and a voice spoke low in his ear. Don't scream, don't fight. I'm here to help you, but you need to listen very carefully. Derek's eyes went wide with terror. He nodded frantically. Colin released him but kept a firm grip on his shoulder. My name is Colin. I work for British intelligence. That man you filmed in the grocery store, he's a retired spy. And because of your video, some very dangerous people are looking for him. Which means they're going to come looking for you too. Derek's face had gone pale. What? That's insane. I didn't. I was just making content. I don't care what you were doing, Colin interrupted. What matters is that you're in danger. Real danger. Not internet drama. Not cancel culture. People with guns who will hurt you to get information. Do you understand? Derek nodded shakily. What do I do? You come with me. Right now. We're getting you somewhere safe until this blows over. For how long? Colin's expression was grim. As long as it takes. Derek looked around the parking lot, as if expecting armed men to materialize from the shadows. This is insane. This can't be real. It's very real. And it's happening because you decided to film a stranger for likes. So now you get to live with the consequences. Let's go. They drove in silence to the safe house Harper's team had established. A rented cabin on the opposite side of Asheville from Thomas's location. Naomi was waiting there, her laptop open, surveillance feeds streaming across multiple monitors. Welcome to protective custody, Mr. Walsh, she said without looking up. Make yourself comfortable. You're going to be here for a while. Derek sank onto a couch, his head in his hands. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Nobody ever does, Naomi replied. But here we are. Back at Thomas's cabin, Harper received confirmation that Derek was secure. She turned to Thomas. Walsh is off the board. Now we focus on you. The Serbian team will make contact soon. When they do, we'll be ready. Thomas nodded, a strange calm settling over him. He'd spent 7 years trying to escape this life, but maybe escape was never really an option. Maybe the only choice was between running forever or making a stand. And Thomas Mercer was tired of running. Let them come, he said quietly. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Harper studied him, recognizing the look in his eyes. She'd seen it before, in soldiers who'd decided they were done surviving and ready to fight. Just don't get yourself killed, Mr. Mercer. We've invested too much in keeping you alive. I'll do my best, Thomas said. But no promises. Outside, the mountains stood silent under a starless sky. Somewhere out there, hunters were closing in, and the quiet town of Asheville was about to become a battlefield. Thank you so much for staying with us through this intense journey so far. The tension is building, the players are in position, and the storm is about to break. The best is yet to come, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Keep watching, this story is far from over. The Serbian team moved with the efficiency of professionals who had done this work 100 times before. Marko Lazic was the team leader, a former Yugoslav army intelligence officer turned private contractor. At 47, he was broad-shouldered and cold-eyed, a man who'd survived the Balkan Wars and emerged with a flexible moral compass and expensive tastes. His two companions were Vera Kovac, a surveillance expert who specialized in electronic tracking, and Dmitry Petrovic, a muscle-bound enforcer who asked few questions and followed orders without hesitation. They'd been hired by a proxy company operating out of Cyprus, but the real client was a Russian oligarch named Viktor Sokolov, a billionaire with interests in weapons manufacturing and deep ties to the Kremlin. Sokolov had been one of several high-profile names mentioned in the Kestrel files, implicated in illegal arms sales that had fueled conflicts in Africa and the Middle East. If those files ever became public, Sokolov's empire would collapse, and he'd likely spend his remaining years in a maximum security prison. For the past decade, Sokolov had been searching for Thomas Mercer, the man who held those files. And now, thanks to a stupid video posted by an American influencer, he finally had a lead. Marko sat in the luxury suite at the Grove Park Inn, staring at his laptop screen. Vera had already hacked into Asheville's municipal surveillance network, cross-referencing locations from Derek's video with property records and utility usage patterns. They had identified 3 possible residences where an elderly British man matching Thomas's description might live. One of those properties was a cabin on Riceville Road, registered under the name Thomas Mercer, with low digital footprint and irregular activity patterns, classic signs of someone trying to stay off the grid. That's him, Marko said, pointing at the screen. Petrovic, you and I will handle reconnaissance tomorrow. Vera, keep monitoring communications. If British intelligence is involved, they'll be scrambling to protect him. I want to know their every move. Vera nodded, her fingers already flying across her keyboard. I've flagged keywords: Mercer, Asheville, Protective Services, Extraction Protocols. If anyone mentions them in communication intercepts, we'll know. What Vera didn't know was that Naomi Chen was running a counter-surveillance operation, monitoring the same networks and actively feeding false information into channels she suspected were compromised. When Vera's search algorithms picked up a fabricated communication suggesting Thomas had relocated to a property near the Biltmore estate, she took the bait. He's moved, Vera announced. New location, south side of the city. Looks like they're trying to extract him. Marco frowned. How certain are you? 80%. The traffic patterns match extraction protocols. Then we hit the new location first. If he's there, we take him. If not, we fall back to the cabin the next morning. Marco and Dimitri drove to the false location, a rental property Harper's team had staged to appear occupied. They conducted surveillance from a distance, noting the security setup, the vehicle parked outside, the movements inside. It looked legitimate. Too legitimate. It's a trap, Marco said after an hour of observation. British intelligence is good, but not this good. They're baiting us. Dimitri grunted. So we go to the cabin. We go to the cabin. At Thomas's actual location, Harper's team was ready. Colin had established a defensive perimeter, concealing himself in the forest with a clear line of sight to the cabin's approach road. Naomi monitored digital traffic, tracking the Serbian team's movements through compromised communications. Harper remained inside with Thomas, both armed and prepared for contact. They'll come today, Harper said, checking her weapon as Sig Sauer P226 with suppressor. Probably late afternoon when the light is failing. That's when I'd make my move. Thomas sat at the kitchen table, field stripping and cleaning his Glock with practiced ease. I appreciate what you're doing, Major, but you need to understand something. These people aren't after me because of what I've done. They're after me because of what I know. And if they can't capture me, they'll kill me. This won't end until the Kestrel files are neutralized. Then we neutralize them, Harper replied. We've discussed this with London. You release the files through a secure channel, WikiLeaks, a trusted journalist, whatever works. Once the information is public, you're no longer valuable. No more target on your back. Thomas shook his head. You don't understand. Those files contain information that could destabilize governments, collapse intelligence alliances, spark international incidents. I kept them secret because releasing them would cause more harm than good, and keeping them secret has made you a prisoner, Harper countered. How many more years do you want to live like this? Always looking over your shoulder, always waiting for someone like Marco Lazik to find you. Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then he said, there's another option. I turn myself over. Let them have me. Let this end. Absolutely not, Harper said firmly. We don't trade assets. Ever. I'm not an asset. I'm a tired old man who is ready to stop running. Before Harper could respond, Naomi's voice crackled through the tactical radio. Movement, 2 vehicles approaching from the east. Serbian team, confirmed visual, ATA 3 minutes. Harper stood, her expression shifting to operational focus. This is it. Thomas, get to the safe room now. Thomas didn't move. I'm staying. That's not a suggestion. I said I'm staying. Thomas interrupted, his voice hard. I've been in combat before you were born, Major. I'm not hiding in a closet while others fight my battles. Harper stared at him, then nodded curtly. Fine, but you follow my orders. Clear, clear. Colin's voice came through the radio. I have eyes on 2 Tangos male. Armed, tactical approach. 1 driver remaining in the vehicle, engine running. They're expecting resistance. Harper moved to the window, peering through a narrow gap in the curtains. She could see the vehicle now, a black SUV parked 200 yards down the dirt road. 2 figures moved through the forest, using tree cover, approaching with military precision. Naomi, are we legal? Harper asked. Affirmative. You're on private property. Defensive posture. Rules of engagement are clear. Harper activated her radio. Colin, you're authorized to engage if they breach the perimeter. Non-lethal if possible, but protect the asset. Copy that. Marco and Dimitri approached the cabin slowly. Their weapon-suppressed submachine guns held at the ready. They'd studied the layout, identified entry points, prepared for resistance. But as they closed within 50 yards, Colin Matthews emerged from the forest behind them, his own weapon trained on their backs. British intelligence, Colin called out in a clear, authoritative voice. Put down your weapons. This property is under protective surveillance. You are not authorized to approach. Marco spun, his weapon coming up instinctively. Colin fired twice non-lethal rounds designed to incapacitate rather than kill. The first round struck Marco in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. The second hit Dimitri in the thigh, dropping him to one knee. Inside the cabin, Harper heard the shots and moved to the door, Thomas right behind her. They emerged onto the porch as Colin advanced on the 2 wounded men, kicking their weapons away and securing them with zip-tie restraints. Clear, Colin called out. Tangos neutralized, but the operation wasn't over. Vera, monitoring from the vehicle, saw her team go down. She made a split-second decision, throwing the SUV into gear and accelerating toward the cabin. Her plan was simple: ram the structure, create chaos, and escape in the confusion. Naomi, tracking the vehicle's movement through hacked GPS, saw the threat developing. Vehicle inbound, hostile approach, ramming speed. Harper grabbed Thomas and pulled him back inside as the SUV roared up the dirt road and slammed into the corner of the cabin. The impact was tremendous: wood splintering, support beams cracking, the entire structure shuddering, but the cabin held, its reinforced construction absorbing the blow. Vera, dazed from the collision, tried to reverse, but Colin was already moving, firing at the SUV's tires, shredding rubber and immobilizing the vehicle. Vera stumbled out, hands raised, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. "Don't shoot," she gasped in accented English. "I surrender." Harper approached cautiously. "Weapon trained on your knees, hands behind your head." Vera complied, and Colin secured her alongside her companions. Within minutes, local law enforcement would arrive, summoned by Naomi's anonymous call reporting a disturbance. Harper's team would be gone before then, their involvement invisible. The Serbian operatives would be processed as attempted burglars, their weapons and tactical gear raising questions they'd refuse to answer. Thomas stood in the damaged cabin, staring at the 3 captured operatives. They'd come to kill him or capture him. They'd failed, but others would come. There would always be others. "This doesn't end, does it?" Thomas said quietly. Harper holstered her weapon. "Not unless you end it. Release the files, Thomas. Take away their reason to hunt you." Thomas looked at her, then at the mountains beyond, beautiful and indifferent. He'd spent 7 years hiding in those mountains, and it had accomplished nothing. The past had found him anyway. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to face the consequences of the secrets he'd kept for so long. "All right," he said finally. "I'll do it. I'll release the files." Harper nodded. "We'll arrange secure channels. It'll take a few days to coordinate with journalists and legal protections. But once it's done, you're free." "Free," Thomas repeated, tasting the word. It felt strange, foreign, like a language he'd forgotten how to speak. This story is almost at its conclusion, but the most powerful moment is yet to come. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this story has resonated with you. Do you let this be the last time. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so you never miss another incredible story like this one. Stay with us. The ending will be worth it. The release of the Kestrel files happened on a cold Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after the attack on Thomas's cabin. The coordination had been meticulous. MI6 working with The Guardian, The Washington Post, and Der Spiegel to ensure simultaneous publication across multiple jurisdictions, protecting both the journalists and the source. The files contained evidence of arms trafficking, money laundering, political assassinations, and corruption spanning 3 decades, implicating government officials, military contractors, and oligarchs across a dozen nations. The global reaction was immediate and explosive. Headlines dominated news cycles. Governments scrambled to issue denials. Arrests began within hours. Financial markets trembled as corporations named in the files saw their stock prices collapse. Viktor Sokolov, the Russian oligarch who'd hired Marko Lazik's team, was detained at his Monaco estate within 24 hours, facing extradition to the United States on weapons trafficking charges. Thomas watched the news coverage from his cabin, now repaired and reinforced. Harper's team had departed, their mission complete. Colin Matthews had left him a burner phone with a single contact programmed in a direct line to MI6's protective services, just in case. Naomi Chen had scrubbed his digital footprint, making it harder for anyone to track him going forward. But the real protection came from publicity itself. With the Kestrel files public, Thomas was no longer a secret worth killing for. He was just a witness, and silencing witnesses after the truth was already out served no purpose. On the 3rd day after the release, Thomas received an unexpected visitor. He heard the car approaching long before it arrived, his instincts still sharp despite his age. But when he saw who stepped out of the vehicle, his breath caught in his throat. Emma Mercer stood in his driveway, older than in the photograph he kept on his mantle, but unmistakably his daughter. She was 38 now, her mother's eyes and his stubborn jawline, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. She looked nervous, uncertain, but determined. Thomas stepped onto the porch, his voice rough with emotion. "Emma, hi Dad," she said quietly. "I saw your name in the news. Figured it was time we talked." They sat on the porch for hours. The conversation awkward at first, then gradually warming as years of silence began to crack. Emma told him about her life, her marriage to a high school teacher named Marcus, her 2 children, 10-year-old Sophie and 8-year-old James, her work as a school counselor. Thomas listened, memorizing every detail, realizing how much he'd missed. "I was angry for a long time," Emma admitted. "Mom tried to explain that your work was important, that you were protecting people, but I just felt abandoned, like we weren't enough to make you stay." Thomas's hands trembled. "You were always enough, more than enough. But the work I did, it wasn't safe to be close to me. I thought I was protecting you by staying away, were you?" Or were you protecting yourself from having to choose between us and the job? The question cut deep because it was true. Thomas had told himself for years that distance was for their safety, but the reality was more complicated. The work had become his identity, his purpose. Without it, he hadn't known who he was. And facing the family he'd neglected would have meant facing that emptiness. "You're right," he said finally. "I made the wrong choice. I chose the mission over you and your mother, and I've regretted it every single day since." Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the mountains. "The kids ask about their grandfather sometimes. I've never known what to tell them." Thomas felt tears sting his eyes, something he hadn't experienced in decades. "Tell them he's sorry. Tell them he was a coward who didn't know how to be a father. And tell them he'd like a chance to try to be a grandfather, if they'll have him." Emma looked at him, her own eyes wet. "I think we can arrange that." Over the following weeks, Thomas began the slow process of rebuilding a relationship with his daughter. Video calls with his grandchildren, awkward at first, became easier with each conversation. Emma visited Asheville twice more, bringing Marcus and the kids the second time. Thomas taught James how to identify trees and animal tracks in the forest. He read Sophie stories about the Blue Ridge Mountains, carefully edited versions that left out the violence and focused on the beauty. It wasn't redemption, not completely. The scars of 3 decades of absence couldn't heal overnight, but it was a beginning, a chance to be present in the time he had left. Derek Walsh, released from protective custody after the Kestrel files went public, returned to his apartment shaken and changed. The viral video that had caused so much chaos was still online, but Derek had pinned a comment to the top. "I owe this man an apology. Sometimes chasing views makes us forget that the people we film have lives, histories and dignity. I was wrong. I'm sorry." The comment didn't go viral like the original video, but it received thousands of supportive replies. Derek deleted his most controversial content and pivoted his channel toward more thoughtful storytelling, interviewing locals about Asheville's history and culture. His subscriber count grew more slowly, but the audience he built was more engaged, more respectful. He'd learned, albeit the hard way, that there were consequences to treating human beings as content. One afternoon, Derek worked up the courage to drive out to Thomas's cabin. He knocked hesitantly, half expecting to be turned away. Thomas opened the door, studied the young man for a moment, then stepped aside. "I suppose you want to talk," Thomas said. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," Derek replied. "For the video, for everything that happened because of it." "I didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't ask," Thomas interrupted. "You saw an easy target and took your shot. That's on you. But you also didn't know what you'd set in motion, and you've paid a price for your ignorance. So I accept your apology." Derek nodded, relief visible on his face. "Can I ask you something? All those news stories about the files you released, were you really a spy?" Thomas smiled faintly. "I was a lot of things. Spy, soldier, assassin, prisoner of my own choices. But I'm trying to be something better now. A grandfather. Maybe even a friend to this community. We'll see if I'm any good at it." "I think you will be," Derek said. As autumn deepened into winter, Asheville transformed. The mountains wore coats of snow, and the town's holiday lights gave everything a warm, festive glow. Thomas attended his first community event, a Christmas market downtown, and found himself surprisingly at ease among strangers. He chatted with vendors, bought handmade gifts for his grandchildren, and even shared a laugh with a local artist who recognized him from the news. "You're that British guy who blew the whistle on all those corrupt politicians," the artist said. "Took guts. This world needs more people willing to tell the truth." Thomas shrugged modestly. "I just got tired of carrying secrets. Sometimes the weight becomes too much." On Christmas Eve, Emma and her family came to Asheville and stayed at Thomas's cabin. It was cramped and chaotic, children's laughter echoing through rooms that had known only silence for years. They decorated a tree together, and Thomas told stories from his childhood in Liverpool, carefully curated tales that had no blood or darkness. When Sophie and James went to bed, Thomas and Emma sat by the fireplace, watching the flames dance. "I never thought we'd have this," Emma said quietly. "After so many years, I'd given up hoping you'd be part of my life again." "I never stopped hoping," Thomas replied. "I just didn't think I deserved it." "Maybe none of us deserve the good things we get," Emma said. "Maybe we just have to be brave enough to accept them when they come." Thomas looked at his daughter, grown strong, wise in ways he'd never been, and felt something shift inside him. The guilt would never fully disappear. The ghosts would always be there, but perhaps alongside them, there could also be light, love, family, a reason to wake up that wasn't about survival but about living. "Thank you," he said simply, "for giving me another chance." Emma squeezed his hand. "You're my dad. That's what families do." As the year turned and spring arrived in the mountains, Thomas Mercer found himself in a place he'd never expected to be at peace. Not the peace of isolation, but the peace that comes from connection, from facing the past and choosing to build something better. The shadows would always be part of his story, but they no longer defined it. He still took his morning walks through the forest, still drank his coffee on the porch at dawn, but now, sometimes, he'd get a video call from his grandchildren asking him to tell them about the birds they'd seen, or Emma would text asking if he wanted to visit for dinner. The cabin that had been a hiding place had become a home, and on quiet evenings, when the mountains stood silent and the stars emerged overhead, Thomas would think about the journey that had brought him here, the violence, the secrets, the loneliness, the sacrifice. He couldn't change what he'd done, couldn't bring back the years he'd lost with his family, but he could be present now. He could choose every single day to be better than he'd been. That, he'd learned, was the only redemption that mattered, not forgiveness from others, though that was precious, but the choice to stop running, to face the light, and to build something worthwhile with whatever time remained. Thomas Mercer had spent 35 years in the shadows. Now, finally, he was learning how to live in the sun. And so we reach the end of Thomas Mercer's extraordinary journey, a story of secrets and sacrifice, of consequences and courage, and ultimately, of redemption. From the mountains of Asheville to the corridors of power where his revelations sent shockwaves around the world, Thomas's path reminds us that it's never too late to choose truth, never too late to reconnect with those we've lost, and never too late to step out of the shadows and into the light. What did you think of Thomas's story? Do you believe he made the right choice in releasing the Kestrel files? How do you feel about Derek's journey from careless content creator to someone who learned the value of human dignity? We want to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below telling us what you think. And let us know your name and what city and state you're watching from. We love connecting with our viewers from all corners of the country. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the choices we make and the consequences they carry, then please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We bring you powerful, emotional, true-to-life stories every week, and we don't want you to miss a single one. And don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who appreciates compelling storytelling. Before you go, check out the next recommended video appearing on your screen right now, another incredible story that will captivate you from the very first moment. Thank you for being here, for watching until the end, and for being part of our community. Until next time, remember, every stranger has a story, every choice has a consequence, and sometimes, the quiet person next to you is carrying secrets that could change the world.